You're not going to like this episode, and I know that because I'm not going to like this episode. It's going to require me to envision things I'm not ready to envision. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I don't mean to make it sound super serious. It's not. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Staying up to watch the Stanley Cup playoff games last night, both of them, I should add, with disappointing results from my own personal perspective. I find that I allow myself to engage emotionally and just for fun a lot more with these games and seeing them on TV and having them be teams that are not from Pittsburgh that I don't have to professionally cover or anything. It's just looser, it's more relaxed, and I enjoy it for the most part. So when there are scenes, as there was when the Wild got knocked out and it became clear that Marc-Andre Fleury was like really, really, really done in the NHL, and the Golden Knights, another of his former teams, stayed out on the ice, and it's now becoming commonplace, this scene where the opponent stays out and pays respect to someone of prominence. In Flowers' case, it was almost becoming a tour. It wasn't just Pittsburgh where that was going on. It was everywhere that the Wild went over the past month. He didn't want it. He didn't ask for it. And if you caught his final farewell in St. Paul, he didn't even hang around for it. He was just too overcome. You could tell. After he shook hands with the Vegas players and he gave like one friendly wave to the crowd and then straight line right to the tunnel. But you know what? That's one of those things that when the toothpaste comes out of the tube, it's not going back in. We saw teams pay tribute, not just to Flower, but also to Alexander Ovechkin, including here in Pittsburgh. And for those of you who really watch the NHL carefully, you'll know that this happened on Long Island at season's end when the crowd there, the home team, and then subsequently the visitors were paying tribute to Matt Martin, a career fourth liner. I'm not saying that to knock on any of this, including being a fourth liner. Martin was there for a long time, put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Remember the whole best fourth line in hockey thing? But you know why I'm bringing this up. One can only begin to imagine what that'll be like for some of the Penguins guys, some of the Penguins current guys. And regardless of the order, you would think that Yevgeny Malkin will go first for a whole bunch of reasons, not least of which is that he's a year older and his contract expires after next season. Believe you me, it's no accident that Gino didn't want to speak with reporters after the last game, and then even on locker cleanout day, joked around about it, but ultimately wasn't there, and there was a reason for that. I'm sure that he didn't want anything to do with having to answer questions about whether or not next season will be his last, whether it's in Pittsburgh or anywhere. But it's coming. All of this is coming. Gino's farewell is coming. Chris Letang's farewell is coming. And the biggest one of all will be in there somewhere too. And with all due respect to Flower and Matt Martin and everybody else, you've seen nothing in the way of these types of farewells and tributes and video presentations and giving somebody watches and stuff like that compared to what's coming for Sidney Crosby. I can imagine these scenarios taking place in, well, let's just say 30 out of 32 arenas. And if you followed Sid's career closely, you're going to be able to name the two that might put up a little bit of resistance. One is the obvious. That's Philadelphia. I don't see the Flyers doing something like, hey, Sid, we love you. The same people that were putting out placards in the playoffs that said, we don't like you either, after Sid had uttered his famous remarks out in Philly that he didn't like the people there, he didn't like playing there. The other one is Ottawa. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the earliest days of Sid, and the Senators were just kind of coming up and hot around the same time in the late 2000s. And then again, when the Senators made it to the Eastern Conference Final, pretty much on Erik Karlsson's back, by the way. It was Sid setting up Chris Kunitz for the double overtime goal in Game 7. And Sid was just part of the reason that their hopes and dreams kept getting shattered up there. So they've always been rough on Sid. But you know what? I don't even think that's going to hold up. Never forget that one of the most poignant ovations that Mario Lemieux ever got was in Philadelphia when the fans there knew that he made an afternoon flight to play in a game coming right out of his last chemo treatment, and then scored, of course. And then I can't even get into what it would be like in Pittsburgh. Yeah, for any of them. And that's in part because of this way that things are unfolding now. For the longest time, and this goes across sports, you didn't really have a way to say goodbye. You can guess and when it's going to be somebody's last game, last goal, last touchdown, last home run. This summer we might see, farewell for the truly great Andrew McCutchen at PNC Park. How do you go about that? What are the rules? What are the unwritten rules? Does the opponent stay out on the field? Do the umpires partake in it? You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of this coming, and way more of it on the hockey front than on any other in our city. And yeah, I just kind of ruined your morning, didn't I? All right, cool. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season. From Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from John in Orlando, who says, DK, now that Mike Sullivan's with the Rangers, do you think he's going to push their GM, Chris Drury, to acquire any current Penguins that he loves who we consider to be on a less desirable contract or who might not fit the Penguins' reloading plan? Man, I hadn't thought of that, at all. I hadn't thought about Sully poaching anybody from here, up to and including members of the coaching staff. Don't forget, when you go into a new situation as a head coach, Kyle Dubas said this himself about whoever it is that he's going to hire for the Pittsburgh job. He wants the coach to have, this was Dubas' exact term, a clean slate when it comes to choosing who he'll be working with on a daily basis. Sullivan's going to have that in New York. And there's already been, out of Madison Square Garden, suggestions that John Tortorella would be back, and then that got shot down about 6 days ago. And that would have been, of course, as Sullivan's assistant, as Tortorella was for the United States in the Four Nations tournament. There have been hints that Sullivan would try to bring David Quinn across. The two of them have known each other for a long time, but Quinn is under contract with the Penguins further into the future, so that would be something that the Rangers would have to arrange with the Penguins. But I mean, from a player standpoint, it's hard to say, because most commonly when you see these types of moves, and this goes across sports, not just hockey, it's going to be guys that are further down on the organizational depth chart, because the other ones are, they're signed and their current teams want them. They're not going to give them up for nothing. Whereas if you see, for example, kind of a fringy guy gets put on waivers, I'm going to throw a name out here, and there's no basis for reality in my citing him, but just as a fun example here, Noel Acciari. We know how Sullivan feels about Acciari. We know why he feels that way. I respect it. I didn't want Acciari on this roster, but I respect what he gives to the team and why the team values him as much as it does. And by that, I mean the locker room, his teammates. If there came a day that Dubas said, listen, I've got to move this guy, I can't be giving him a couple $1 million, or he just needs to make some other roster move, then you put Acciari on waivers, and Maybe he's been there before, maybe he hasn't, but Sullivan will be with the Rangers bemoaning how terrible their penalty killing's been because they're not blocking shots. You see what I'm saying here? I think it would be way more in that spirit than it would, hey, Chris, can you go get me Brian Rust? Because all you're going to have in that event is Dubas asking for an overpay because he has no interest in losing Rust. Rust is going to help advance everything about this next phase in an ideal situation. So then what are you doing? You're just making a hockey trade and you're doing it inside the division and no thanks. So no, I don't think so when it comes to somebody important, but I do when it's somebody that's further down the ladder. Really good question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.